Now, we stay in KwaZulu-Natal, but we focus on politics now. It's got a newly elected Premier, and she's Nomusa Dube-Ncube, who's now appointed new MECs for a cabinet and made changes to her executive council in KwaZulu-Natal. 4 new members will be serving for the first time in the province's executive. Siphamandla Goge is the new MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. You remember he just was elected the other day as the new chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, and is also the leader of government business. Zikalala, the former Premier, is now the new MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in the province. My colleague, eNCA senior reporter Siphamandla Goge, joining us now just to give us a high-level sense of what this could all mean. Siphamandla, good afternoon. Welcome to today. Thanks for your time. Just tell us more about these provincial executive cabinet changes.
Not surprising at all. Speculation has always been there, and particularly on the issue of Zikalala. I remember a few weeks ago, or just 2 weeks ago, I interviewed the newly elected Provincial Secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, Peggy Mtolo, and I asked him about reports that Zikalala had asked to resign as the Premier, saying he will accept any deployment except that of being the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Mtolo confirming to eNCA that indeed they were definitely going to consider Zikalala for a position as one of the MECs in the Executive Council. So today he has been announced, or appointed rather, as the new MEC responsible for cooperative governance and traditional affairs. That is not surprising at all. That is not surprising at all, because the officials of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and the Provincial Executive Committee felt that they still needed his skills and abilities to run the provincial government, but being responsible for one of the critical portfolios. This time around, that being cooperative governance and traditional affairs, he will be responsible for mostly municipalities in the province. But most importantly, another important aspect of it is the traditional affairs of it. He will be directly liaising with the traditional leaders in the province, including Amazulu King. So that's a very serious portfolio that Zikalala has been assigned. Now you come to the issue of Nomusa Dube, who's been given economic development, tourism and environmental affairs, making him the leader of government business. Before that, he was the chair of chairs at the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Legislature, and it's one of the so-called super departments in terms of power and resources. Now he becomes the leader of government business. He's the chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Some people say that's actually where power lies, because now that he is being appointed as a member of the Executive Council, he will be working with the Premier and all the officials of the ANC, 4 of them, excluding, of course, the Provincial Secretary, who's permanent at the provincial headquarters. We are talking about Dr. Ntuthuko Mahlaba, who was sworn in as the MEC responsible for public works and human settlements. He is the provincial treasurer of the ANC. Siphamandla Goge, deputy provincial secretary, was moved from Kokta to make way for Zikalala. He's been deployed to transport and community safety and liaison. And Nomusa Dube-Ncube, who's the deputy provincial chair of the ANC, remains at health. And then you have Siphamandla Goge now being, appointed the new 8-year MEC. So 4 officials of the ANC are part of that executive. They will be working closely with the newly elected Premier, Nomusa Dube-Ncube. Others, including opposition political parties, have said that in terms of power dynamics, the newly elected Premier will become too compromised, because she's not part of the officials of the ANC. Of course, she's a member of the PEC of the ANC and Provincial Working Committee, PWC, but she will be taking her cue from Siphamandla Goge, the provincial chair, deputy chairperson Nomusa Dube, Siphamandla Goge, deputy provincial secretary, and Dr. Ntuthuko Mahlaba, who is the new MEC for public works and human settlements. So you've got this power consolidation in terms of these deployments that we have seen today being announced by Nomusa Dube-Ncube.
Now, Siphamandla, just on those power dynamics, if you can just quickly deal with that. Mr. Duma is the chair of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal province, but unlike what we've seen in the past, he's not the Premier now. He was not put forward as, or deployed, as the ANC would say, as the Premier. I mean, Zikalala was chairperson and he was deployed as Premier. Is this a first?
No, it's not the first. When Sihle Zikalala was the chairperson of the ANC, he was actually sworn in as a member of the provincial legislature and later appointed as the MEC responsible for economic development, tourism and environmental affairs. The very same portfolio that has been assigned to Siboniso Duma. So Siboniso Duma takes his cue from the trend that has been set with Sihle Zikalala. When Sihle Zikalala was the chairperson of the ANC, he was the MEC of Etia First under Premier Willis Mchunu, who was the deputy chairperson of the ANC. So it has happened in the past in KwaZulu-Natal that the provincial chairperson does not automatically become the premier. It started with Sihle Zikalala. Of course, before that, you had Sbu Ndebele, who was the chairperson, who became the premier. Zweli Mkhize was the chairperson, he became the premier. Senzo Mchunu was the chairperson, he became the premier. Of course, Senzo Mchunu started off as the MEC responsible for education. Then Willis Mchunu was the premier, who was not the chairperson, but rather the deputy chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Sihle Zikalala became the chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Willis Mchunu was the premier. Sihle Zikalala became an MEC. So it's not for the first time in KwaZulu-Natal that the chairperson is not the premier. It has happened before with Sihle Zikalala, but of course later on Sihle Zikalala went on to become the premier, as was the chairperson of the ANC when Willis Mchunu did not return in 2019. But power lies with the leader of government business, who's the official of the ANC, in this case Siboniso Duma. So it's not a new trend that has been set, but remember, Siboniso Duma is the one who told the officials of the ANC that he was too junior to be appointed premier of KwaZulu-Natal. He did not have executive experience at the time. He has not been in the executive of the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Council, saying he needs to get more experience. He cannot just jump and be appointed premier. On those bases, Siboniso Duma, Nomagugu Smelane, Sipho Hlomuga and Tutuko Mahlaba, all four officials of the ANC declined possible nomination as premier. Hence, they had to go and look for one of the senior members of the Executive Council, and that was Nomusa Dube.
So those are the dynamics which are not new, as you say, in KwaZulu-Natal. Hopefully they will work, because the ANC normally is headed by its chairperson, and that relationship between Siboniso Duma and the new premier is going to be very interesting to watch over the next few weeks and few months. Now, the premier saying that she'll be focusing, or this new team will be focusing on creating more jobs in KwaZulu-Natal, which is a very much needed effort.
Absolutely. Before we listen to Nomusa Dube-Ncube, let me quickly add that in other provinces as well, it has happened that the provincial chairperson is not the premier. In Mpumalanga, Mandla Ndlovu is the chairperson of the ANC. He is Kokta MEC. Refilwe is the one who's the premier in the province. If my memory serves me well, previously in the Northern Cape, John Block was the chairperson of the ANC, but he was responsible for the position or portfolio of treasurer. So it has happened before in other provinces whereby the chairperson is not actually the premier, but serving in the Executive Council. Coming back to KwaZulu-Natal, now Nomusa Dube-Ncube says the issue of provision of basic services will be the priority. She says people of KwaZulu-Natal are expecting immediate and urgent change. Let's take a listen.
Our people are suffering out there. We need to deal with the issues of poverty, the issues of inequity in the economy, to also ensure that the job creation and working with all the social partners become our priority in rebuilding the economy and creating the decent jobs for our communities in KwaZulu-Natal. We need to strive to ensure that our people in the rural areas, in the townships, really do get to benefit from the work that the government is doing. Our strong focus will be directed into unlocking opportunities available through the integrated government investment, infrastructure development, targeting and implementing the radical economic transformation programs across all the corners of our province.
Now, the Council for Medical Schemes is calling on medical aids to consider the difficult economic environment when adjusting their increases for 2023. It's urged